Hey writers, Ingrid Sundberg here, and this is Ingrid's Notes, where I'm talking about creative writing, craft, and process. And this is the third video where I'm talking about the pros and cons between traditional publishing and self-publishing. Now in video 1, I covered submissions, the published product, payment and royalties, rights usage, and contracts. In video number 2, I covered the editorial process, marketing, and the market overall, such as things like trends, pricing, and who your readers are. And today in this final installment, I want to talk about the life and the pace and how these are really very different in these two different publishing worlds. Let's talk about the pace of publishing, because this is one of the biggest differences between traditional and indie. In traditional publishing, from sale of book to book on shelf, on average, takes 2 years. It's long. Generally, under this model, most traditionally published authors have a goal of having one book come out a year. That sale to book on shelf, you're not working on the book for that whole 2 years. You're working on it for a significant amount of that first year as you're editing. But then you're starting to write a new book and you're going to sell that and start editing that, hoping that will then come out the next year. So the goal for a lot of them is one book a year. Of course, you can't guarantee you'll have a book come out every year. You have to actually make sure you sell the next book. And that's something you don't have as much control over. You can control the writing, but you can't really control what they're looking for in the market. And because you only have one book coming out per year, the launch of that book is kind of a big deal. Those first 3 months in which that book is out is really going to determine kind of the energy and life of the book a lot of times. Indie publishing is a whole different ball of wax. It is the crazy, wild, wild west, and things happen fast, fast, fast. And when I say fast, a lot of the really, really successful authors are publishing a book every month. Now, those aren't all full-length books, though many of them are. But they're publishing something monthly. It may be a short story, it may be a novella, it may be, the different elements of a series. Anthologies are really popular, where several authors get together and they put books into an anthology and they sell and market it together. But they're publishing a lot. It is a quantity game. That doesn't mean it's low quality. It just means they're writing more voraciously and publishing more voraciously. As a result, book launches are important, yes, but they aren't this huge, important, this book must do well type of thing, because they are publishing constantly. They're building a body of work. And the idea is that will always be there as their backlist, and it will continually be making money. Yes, certain things are going to make money for a certain amount of time because it's popular, but if you start to get your readership, the people who discover you and love your work, this works in both traditional and self-publishing. Once you find your readers, they will now go through your entire backlist and buy your books and read them. The model with self-publishing is they have significant backlists. So let's just talk about the life of traditional published authors and the life of indie published authors. Traditionally published authors have more real life interaction with their audience. They go to bookstores and do signings. They go to book festivals. They are doing school visits. There's a lot of just real life, I'm here with my book, selling you interaction. Whereas the indie publishing world is really built around online marketing and the online interaction with your readership. That isn't to say there isn't crossover. There absolutely is. In traditional publishing, writing and marketing are your focus. In indie publishing, you are an authorpreneur. You are doing everything. You are creating a business. Yes, you are creating a business as well in traditional publishing, but a lot of the business decisions are not ones you have control over. So if you're a control freak, then you might really love indie publishing. And if you're like, oh, I just don't want to deal with all of that, that is going to drive me nuts, maybe traditional publishing is the right way. Hands down, traditional publishing will always have more prestige. You will be able to say, right? Simon and Schuster published this book. I was published by one of the big five. I have a physical book that is in bookstores. You can go out and buy it, share it with your friends. You will always have that. And that prestige will give you authority. It's going to make you look a certain way in the eyes of future employers if you wanted to teach or if you wanted to give workshops. I mean, the fact that I've been published and I'm making these videos obviously gives me a sense of authority to everyone versus if I said, well, I self-published 20 books and I'm making millions of dollars. I mean, that's a different kind of authority. So you want to think about whether that matters to you. Indie publishing, on the other hand, has less prestige, at least right now in today's market. But the difference is you have all of the control. You are really in control of your author life. You get to make the decisions. And that can be really, really important in terms of business planning, in terms of life planning. It's hard to have a career where you're really not sure if you're going to sell the next book, but you can create systems based on what your independently published books are selling, how they're doing. You can create a business plan, which is why a lot of traditionally published authors have day jobs, so they have some sort of consistent income. Now, a lot of self-published authors also have day jobs until they create a consistent income self-publishing. In traditional publishing, there are always going to be gatekeepers. You're going to have to get your agent to like your book and want to submit it to publishers. You're going to have to then get a publisher to like your book. There are always going to be people in the way. There are always going to be people who are rejecting you. It's part of the life. There's a lot of angst that comes with that, a lot of fear, a lot of worrying about whether something you've put your heart and soul into is actually going to pay off and become a book. Where in indie, none of your books are ever going to be abandoned. You can publish absolutely everything. But there's also a shit ton of work to do, so it can also be extremely overwhelming. You never have to worry about if your book is going to go out there and be in the world for readers to read because you are in control of publishing it. So a lot of people who take the indie route are doing it because they're feeling an incredible amount of freedom and empowerment and excitement. And of course, there's also what's called hybrid publishing. And these are people who traditionally publish some of their works and self-publish some of their works. They're in both markets. Self-publishing is also constantly changing. So part of the life is really being excited about what the new thing is and learning to adapt to the fact that something you had as a system before doesn't 100% work anymore and you've got to tweak it. Okay, so let's just recap everything we learned, all the pros and cons between all three of these videos. In traditional publishing, you're going to have agents and editors and gatekeepers, but these are also supportive people who are going to help you publish your book and make it the best it can be. You'll also have a book in a physical bookstore like Barnes & Noble. In indie, you're going to have to wear all the hats, and if you want some support, you're going to have to pay those people. But you also get all of the control, and a lot of the creative choices are yours. This market is also right now primarily ebook based. In traditional publishing, you're going to get an advance, but you're also going to get a lower royalty rate. You'll have also sold your rights to your publisher, so you won't have as much freedom to do what you want with the property, and you'll definitely need to read your contract. In indie, you're going to cover all the upfront costs, but you're also going to get a higher royalty rate. So on every book you sell, you're going to make more money back. You'll also own all of your rights, which gives you a lot more freedom to experiment. In traditional publishing, you're definitely going to get some marketing help, but it may not be the windfall you imagine it to be. You as an author will always need to build your own platform. In traditional, there is a higher price point for the books, but the market is being anticipated 2 years out because it takes sometimes 2 years to get from sale of book to book on shelf. In indie, you're going to do all of the marketing, but you also have a lot more freedom because you own the rights of your book to get creative with that marketing.
These books are, at least in ebook format, sold at rather low price points, and the market reflects what's happening right now. What's hot right now? If you can get it out into the market as soon as possible, you can start making money on it. As of right now, traditional publishing comes with the prestige. It also moves at a much slower pace, with you publishing a book maybe once a year, once every 2 years. So that's important to think about in terms of your advance and your financial planning. You also will interact with your audience both online, but also in person. There's a lot more book festivals and in-person events with traditional publishing. Indie publishing works at a really fast pace, with some very successful authors publishing monthly. It's the Wild West. Things are changing all the time, and everyone is experimenting and seeing what they can really do with books. Also, most of your interactions with your audience will be happening online.
At the end of the day, you have to decide what a successful writing career for you looks like. And maybe that's books on the shelf. Maybe that's producing several books a year and having that kind of creative control. Maybe it's a financial thing. Are you able to do something full-time or part-time? I can't define this for you. If the prestige is important, it's important. That's fine. You define what your personal idea of success is, and then make decisions to follow where that success will be best achieved.